Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. And welcome to Wednesday's edition of the dceu Daily. In the second part of today's show, we are going to have an extensive chat about the Joker sequel, how I feel about the sequel, how I feel about the musical element, and the huge role I believe Bruce Wayne will play in this movie. But first, yesterday, there was breaking news from a scooper called Just Jared. I mean, you shouldn't really be trusting anyone by that name anyway. Anyway, in a podcast, Just Jared claimed that Amber Heard would be sacked from Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, her scenes deleted, and a new actress cast to do reshoots with Jason Momoa and Nicole Kidman. Now, later on, this came out not to be true. Well, that was the official line anyway. So a few hours later, Variety had a quote from Amber Heard's representatives saying this wasn't true. But what is the truth behind it? Will Amber Heard continue to feature in Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom or not? Well, that's the big question. With Amber Heard in this movie, it's not going to make money. We know the Johnny Depp army. They destroyed Fantastic Beasts and the Secrets of Dumbledore, a film that I've seen and adored as, the continuing collection in the Harry Potter saga. That film didn't flop because it's a bad movie, because I think it's a really, really good movie. Maybe not great, but really, really good movie. The reason that movie flopped is because WB made Johnny Depp quit his role as Grindelwald and they replaced him. That's why that movie flopped, because the Johnny Depp army made sure it flopped. Because these may be Johnny Depp fans, but these are the people who go and support these movies. And they didn't support that movie. And they didn't, they're not going to support Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom either. So if they do not remove her, whether they like it or not, they're not going to make any money. But they already know that. They didn't want to include her in Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom in the first place. And even in the Depp Heard trial, Amber said that she fought tooth and nail to make sure she kept that role. But what did you do, Amber? A powerful studio wanted to get rid of you. So clearly, she found a way. She obviously found some leverage to make sure she stayed in that movie. Yes, that's Hollywood. Forget these smiles and the conversations on Twitter from them about kindness and compassion. They don't have a kind and compassion bone in their bodies. She clearly found some leverage to keep on that movie, but Warner Brothers know that that was a mistake. Yes, they shouldn't have brought her back, but when an actor has power over you and leverage over you, they can get away with things. But she has to go. So even though Just Jared claimed she was going, and then her representative saying it's more rumors, it's more madness, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes in the halls of power at WB Pictures. They know, they absolutely know that that movie cannot make any money with her in it. Just like they know that if Ezra Miller remains the lead of the Flash movie, that movie will make very little money as well. Maybe slightly more successful than Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, a movie that's not been hyped up that much. As you know, I've seen a test screening of the movie. It's good, but it's not as good as the first movie. But to be fair, the first movie was really, really good. The second movie is, the story has elements from Jason Momoa. So that's interesting. Also, Jason Momoa and James Wan fought for Amber Heard to remain in the movie because they wanted the continuity element, because she was in the first film. I can understand that, but at the end of the day, as we've already discussed, if she remains, the film doesn't make any money. So will they keep her? No, they're not going to keep her. They're going to sack her on their own terms. Now, even though, once this news came out, poor Just Jared had to come out and say, no, that was wrong. They're right. She's still in the movie. She may still be, in the movie in this moment in time. But it doesn't mean she's going to remain in the movie, because as I say, they know there's no way this movie can be successful with her in it. So they need to find a way, whatever leverage she has over them, they have to find a way to make that leverage, that alleged leverage, worthless. Then they can get rid of her. So they will get rid of her. They will recast her, hopefully with Emilia Clarke, because the chemistry, because one of the bullshit reasons they said they didn't want her back for the second movie was the lack of chemistry she shared with Jason Momoa. Now, Amber Heard, you've seen her. She seems a very heartless, cold person. So she wouldn't have chemistry with anyone. So, you know, that's the issue there. So they have to replace her. Now, talking of Ezra Miller, he's been saying some odd things, that he's in a parallel universe or something like that, and he's untouchable. Because this person actually believes that they are untouchable. But let me tell you something from experience, Jared. You may think you're untouchable. Jared? Jared? Where did I get the name Jared from? Ezra Miller. That's just Jared, isn't it? That's just Jared. Yeah, sorry about that, yeah. But you may think you're untouchable, Ezra Miller, but you are not. And you will be removed from that movie. Now, I think in the end of the day, they may not even reshoot that movie. But later on, I will show you a screenshot of what Dylan O'Brien would look like as the Scarlet Speedster. Very exciting, because I do believe that may be where the studio is going, because they know he's popular with the fans, the people, and the consumer. So that could be a way of replacing Ezra. We'll have to wait and see. But in terms of Amber Heard, no, those rumours may not be true at this point. They may actually be true. But clearly, once representatives come out and say it's not true, then the person leaking it can either say, no, I'm standing by this, which some of them do. But just Jared decided to say, oh, no, she's still in the movie. But she won't remain in the movie. She can't remain in the movie, just like Ezra can't remain in the Flash movie. It's an utter mess, everyone. And that's where we are with that. So here's a screenshot of Dylan O'Brien as the Flash. And doesn't he look fantastic? I think he looks absolutely brilliant. And he would make a great Scarlet Speedster. Now, I know everyone wants him to play Robin, aka Nightwing. I don't know. I mean, it is a multiverse, so maybe he can play both. Unlikely, of course. But I think they are looking and talking to Dylan about this. Dylan did shoot down the rumours about Nightwing, but he hasn't shot down any rumours about the Scarlet Speedster. So let me know in the comments below, would you be happy for Dylan O'Brien to replace Ezra Miller, who really should never ever have been cast as the Flash? Not because of his despicable, disgusting behaviour, because he's just not the Flash. Grant Gustin, as soon as we saw him in the pilot of the Flash series, definitely Barry Allen. But Ezra Miller, no. He has given some excellent performances as the character, but it's not natural and it doesn't feel right. But this guy is the Flash. Simple as that. So let's discuss my thoughts and feelings about Joker 2. It was confirmed last week by director Todd Phillips showing the script on Instagram that Joker 2 was happening. It was coming and I was very, very excited. A couple of days ago, it was again confirmed that Lady Gaga would in fact potentially be playing Harley Quinn in the sequel. She's in early discussions. Early discussions means doesn't mean she's definitely going to be in the movie. So we have to be careful here. It could be somebody else in the end, but I'm convinced it's going to be her because it's huge. I mean, it brings so much notoriety to the film. And it's also going to be a musical. Obviously, because Lady Gaga is involved, it's going to be a musical. I believe if she wasn't going to be involved, this would never be a musical. I think that she insisted on it being a musical, and that's why Todd is making it a musical. Now, I've performed in musicals on stage here in Cyprus many times, and ask any performer, it's the most enjoyable thing to do. but I've always been opposed to turning things that are not naturally musical into musicals. I hated the fact that they were going to make an episode of the Flash series into a musical episode. And ever since that Buffy, that dreaded Buffy musical episode, everyone's obsessed with that one episode being a musical. But why am I opposed to these kind of things normally? Because when you imagine it, you just see there being no drama, no narrative, and it just being all silly. Of course, that's not always the case, and I don't believe the Joker sequel being a musical is a problem. I'm as shocked as you are. I see a lot of things coming. I've been watching films and television for many years. I spent 6 months in Hollywood. So normally I find the industry very, very predictable. So this is a shock. But am I against it? No, I'm not against it. This excites me because I want you to remember something. Just because it's going to be a musical, it doesn't mean the dramatic narrative is going to be poor. There's still going to be elements, many moments in this film where they're not singing and dancing and they're actually talking. Wasn't there a musical number in the Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn? Wasn't there a musical number in there? Didn't Margot do something there? I can't remember. I've seen the movie like once, twice at most. So if that's the case, we've already seen a little bit of a musical number from Harley Quinn, and I think even in the animation, the old animation, Batman the Animated Series, didn't she do some sing songs as well? I don't know, I can't remember. Comment down below and remind me and tell me if I'm right or wrong. So I think the musical element of this movie is ambitious. It lights the blue touch paper. And listen, we've had so many superhero films in the past 10, 20 years. You know, over 20 MCU movies, 10, 11 DCEU movies, and obviously a separate spin-off in Peacemaker. There's a lot of this stuff that just seems like the same. In fact, Peacemaker was kind of different, which made it really refreshing. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad was different, which made it very refreshing. Zack Snyder's Justice League is different. Again, very, very refreshing. But when you look at the MCU, same old thing, same old thing. But, you know, Kevin Feige's done a miraculous job over there. And you can only respect the money and success he's brought to Disney, the MCU and Marvel Studios. But ultimately, people are going to get bored. Now, it looks like David Zaslav has empowered Todd Phillips to finally do this DC Black Label live-action universe he wanted to do back in 2019 when he pitched Joker movie to WB, and Toby Emmerich, the then chairman of WB, he's still there, but he's been obviously removed, so he'll be leaving very, very soon. And DC films president Walter Hamada said no to that idea. That was the dumbest decision of all time. They were nervous because of what happened with Snyder, and they didn't want anything non-mainstream. I think that was their decision. I kind of understand their thinking, but the DC Black Label in graphic novel form is very good. It's very Elseworld. It has nothing to do with anything else that happens in the comic books. How was Todd Phillips going to go about this? Each film would involve a different DC character where you would do a character story about, just like the Joker. But his idea was to create a little bit of a shared extended universe with all of these characters. So it was always his plan to have Joaquin Phoenix's Arthur Fleck be involved in the other movies and have these other characters, once they're introduced, involved slightly in the other movies. I think there's a little story arc going on there, so it's very, very interesting. So I was rewatching Joker. I think that Joker is such an important movie because of the statements it makes about us. Now, Todd Phillips always said it's not a statement movie, but he may not have purposely made a statement movie, but it is. A lot of people got offended because they felt the director was making excuses for Arthur Fleck and what he did. This is not the case. He's looking at how people are treated with mental illness and why does Arthur Fleck, in the end, become what he becomes. I don't believe it's because of I don't believe it's because he was adopted or because of those guys kicking him when they take the ball away from him at the start of the film. Arthur Fleck, as a small boy, was tortured and abused by Penny, his adopted mother's boyfriend, and abused badly. And I think the element of this is where it all started for Arthur Fleck, because that's what gives him the condition that he can't stop laughing. And one of the elements I like about this is because it's original. It gives a reason why Joker can't stop laughing. And it's actually the best reason in the world. But what's heartbreaking about this when you find out is because of abuse he's actually suffered. So it's very, very compelling. And it's from that abuse that stems everything else. Now, this wasn't a straightforward movie, because a lot of moments in this film were fantasies from Arthur Fleck. What was real and what wasn't? I can kind of surmise that most of what we saw from the moment he has the fantasy about being live at Murray's show and Murray calling him down and embracing him and saying, I would give up all the money and success to have a son like you. That's his ultimate fantasy. And you tell me something, and if you say no to me, you'll be lying. How many of us fantasize about meeting the people we look up to and them embracing us and saying, I wish I had a son or daughter like you? Come on. I did it as a kid. Now, because I can see through the industry, I don't really look up to them anymore, but I still love the characters that they play. I love the songs that they sing. You know, that's the way I look at it now. But, you know, as young people, we always fantasize about meeting our idols. What we don't realize in these fantasies, that these people are as hurt and flawed and scared as we are. And they're just normal, everyday people. I could actually just evaporate your crush on whoever you've got, whatever celebrity you've got right now. They're just normal people. They're nothing special. They're just like you and me. Of course, everyone's special, of course. But that's my point. So I think that's another thing that Todd Phillips looks within this movie, how we look up to celebrities and ultimately they're flawed. Because what happens here with Murray, this comedian, this talk show host, Arthur looks up to him. But when he finds, what is Murray? When he finds out who he is, he literally finds a video of Arthur doing stand-up and mocks him and uses it as laughs and ratings for his show. So this is a guy that Arthur hero worshipped, and then that heroic illusion of him he had evaporates. So this movie does make some very important statements. And I think it is such an important film. Now, maybe Todd was making those statements on purpose, but didn't want to admit it. There's the moment in the studio when Arthur is there, and he says everyone is just so ghastly to each other. And I think Todd did reference Twitter, because we go on Twitter every day, and we treat each other like shit just because we don't have the same opinions as each other or support the same political party. It's terrible. And we don't think for one moment the effect our hatred and on-the-spot anger has on other people. I've been attacked sometimes and I play the big un, but when I'm on my own, I have a bit of a cry. It affects me because I know what kind of person I am in the real world, and I don't feel I deserve that, but maybe I do, you know. Maybe I'm just delusional. But when you have these platforms and everyone's putting up their hot takes on what they think, this is what happens. Well, this film is making that statement as well, that the world's gone a bit darker and everyone's so mean to each other without meaning to be. So as I say, that first film, so important. And by the way, you probably didn't notice this, but it sets up as much as any MCU movie does for the next movie. And one of the biggest things it sets up is the dynamic and future relationship between Bruce Wayne and the Joker. It's actually amazing that Todd Phillips decided to put a young Bruce Wayne and Thomas Wayne and, and put Martha Wayne in this film. Now, we don't really see much of Martha Wayne apart from just before when she gets the pearls clutched off of her and she gets killed. But we do see Thomas Wayne a lot. And it's not the nice, kind, compassionate Thomas Wayne we're used to from the comics and some animation and movies. That doesn't mean he doesn't have he's not a good person, but in this movie, he doesn't have a lot of time for the poor and for the working class people of Gotham, who are absolutely suffering here. And then we meet Alfred, again, a very unsympathetic character, but then he does feel that Arthur is a threat. And so we don't see the standard versions of these characters, but Bruce Wayne's just a boy, just a sweet boy, and there's a beautiful scene between Arthur and Bruce Wayne as a boy outside the gates of Wayne Manor. I think it's brilliant. And again, you can tell he's setting up a relationship between them, because Arthur may not have physically directly killed the Waynes, but he set up the circumstances to make them get murdered. He didn't do it on purpose, although he is smiling to himself as we see the scene where, what happens. And that's interesting. And we see Bruce just standing there on his own. Of course, he doesn't know what's happened. I'm sure maybe by that time, even though he's in an asylum, maybe he knows the Waynes were murdered, and maybe he gets some satisfaction about that. So what do you do with Bruce Wayne in the sequel? We are in an Elseworld, an alternate universe. We're on another Earth from the DC universe. So Bruce Wayne may never become Batman in this world. So if he doesn't become Batman, what will he become? Well, I want you to think about this very carefully. If you were a young boy who saw his parents murdered, what would happen to you? Some people would get through it, I suppose, if they had a good support structure. But I believe that most children maybe would end up in care, maybe even an asylum. And I think at the beginning of this film, yes, at the beginning of this film, Bruce Wayne will be an inmate of Arkham Asylum alongside Arthur Fleck, with Harley Quinn, aka Lady Gaga, being their psychotherapist, being their counselor. So that would be a very, very interesting premise. And if this is true, that Bruce Wayne is now an inmate of Arkham Asylum, will there be ill feelings? Will he ever find out what Arthur did and what Arthur's actions directly leading to his parents' murder? Or will he join? Will he join Arthur Fleck when they, obviously, because it's going to happen, when they break out of Arkham Asylum? Yes, I think so, because I think ultimately Bruce and Arthur are going to need each other against a higher threat, a stronger threat, a bigger threat. And what is that threat, everyone? Harley Quinn. Because I think within this movie that Arthur Fleck will create a monster in Harley Quinn, not through an experiment, but just how he manipulates her and the abuse that he puts in her way and what happens to her. So I think this is what's going to happen. She's going to be a huge threat in Gotham City by the third act, and Bruce Wayne and Arthur Fleck may have to work together. This film was always going to have a sequel and a third movie and a fourth movie, but this was never going to be about milking the cow. This was never just about bringing Joaquin Phoenix back, who was sensational in the first movie. I mean, once I heard he was playing Joker, I was relaxed. I knew. I'd never seen a Todd Phillips movie before. I still haven't seen the Hangover trilogy. But Joaquin Phoenix has got something inside of him, inbred. He's River Phoenix's brother, for Christ's sake. And the history and the struggle that his family had, it's inbred for Joaquin to fight for everything. He didn't say yes to Todd Phillips straight away. He looked at the script, he thought about it, because at the end of the day, this wasn't just going to be a little movie. This was Joker. People were going to have opinions on this movie, and Joaquin Phoenix killed it in a very original version of a comic book movie. I was speaking to someone who doesn't like the Joker movie yesterday over on Twitter. It's not a comic book movie. It's the worst comic book movie ever. And you can imagine this person feels this way, and it's up to them to feel that way. I'm not going to invalidate how they feel, just using them as an example, that they just want to see that superhero movie with 3 acts and then Thanos snapping his finger at the end. That's what people are used to now. Where I believe this Joker sequel can light the blue touch paper and create a new genre within the CBM franchise. Todd Phillips, by doing a black label franchise, could do something really different and really exciting by having a different villain story or a different DC character piece every film, but still involving Arthur Fleck and Harley Quinn in the third one as well, and Bruce Wayne, and just adding upon adding. So that would be very, very interesting. So let me know what you think about my Bruce Wayne theory. So this is the DC movie I'm really, really excited for. As soon as I heard it was happening, as soon as I heard it was going to be a musical, and Lady Gaga being in it captures my imagination. And I just think it's going to be an amazing, huge film that will lead to this franchise being huge. The potential of a live action DC Black Label franchise is massive. And I couldn't be more excited for it. This has been the DCEU Daily with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I'll see you on Thursday for Thursday's edition of the DCEU Daily. Until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.